Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
Okay, what are we talking about today?
Metformin.
Okay, metformin is like the universal drug for diabetes, isn't it?
Well, a lot of people don't know that this is its 95th birthday.
Wow, 95th. Wow.
Yeah, 1922.
Ah, wow. How was it administered then? Very large needles in those days.
Not administered to people then, but it's been in a plant, the French lilac is the plant that's been used for 2,000 years. Not sure what it was used for, but anyway, it's in folk medicine. And a researcher in 1922 found the chemicals, of metformin in the plant. And it was used in rabbits to lower blood sugar actually in 1929. The problem with a lot of drug development back then was that insulin came out. We talked about the development of insulin in 1923, and pretty much everybody with diabetes got insulin. So everything else was like, eh.
Vaccine. Yeah, vaccine.
Insulin's important.
Yeah.
Insulin's important. And so everyone used insulin for diabetes. And I think in the 50s, they started looking for other things. They realized maybe diabetes wasn't just one thing. Maybe it was a whole bunch of different diseases together that just had the high blood sugar as a commonality. So they just started looking at other things. And metformin actually was developed in France and approved in France for use in people in 1957. So a lot of people don't realize that because the U.S. didn't have it till a lot later. But it was called glucophage, which phage means eat in French. So it was a glucose eater. And it was used in France for many years. In the U.S., we approved one, Metformin, which proved to be a problem with causing lactic acidosis, and a lot of people died from that. And so pretty much that was taken off the market the 60s or 70s, somewhere in there. And metformin was only approved in 1995 in the U.S. So France had it, for 40 years before we did.
Right.
That's why they're thinner than we are, I think.
But glucophage was still one of the names for it, wasn't it, or a brand name? Or?
Yeah, glucophage was the brand. Bristol Myers had to have a special marketing agreement because it was off patent. And so to bring it to this country, they had to have a special agreement with the FDA to have exclusive marketing rights for 5 years to be able to pay for all the expense of bringing a new drug in.
But since then, obviously, people have seen the benefits of metformin. It's like the O negative of diabetes drugs now. It's kind of
yes, metformin is recommended for using not only in the first line in type 2 diabetes, but also in pre-diabetes, and even in insulin-resistant states such as polycystic ovary syndrome. So it's recommended for all those things because it improves insulin resistance. And if you think about the underlying cause of type 2 diabetes, it is insulin resistance. That's the genetic defect. And that causes a lot of people to gain weight and get hungry and have up and down blood sugars. So if you use metformin first to help the insulin resistance, you're helping the genetic problem improve.
So, and then now this is something that's administered along with insulin, or how's that work?
Well, you always have insulin resistance, even if you wear out your pancreas. This is type 2 diabetes. And so eventually type 2 people might need insulin because their pancreas is dying out, not working. So even though you might be taking insulin as a type 2, you still are insulin resistant. And I think that's what some people don't understand. Even some doctors, stop metformin to put people on insulin is like, well, it's treating two different things. So usually metformin is always used unless there's a problem with it. And there are some problems. It causes diarrhea is the main problem. So you have to start with a little dose and work up gradually, and most people are able to get used to it.
But that is something you just kind of get used to it.
Well, it goes away. I mean, the diarrhea might be at first, and most people it goes away. Some people can't take it at all. Also, metformin is mixed with other medicines now. All the new diabetes medicine like Januvia, Glyza, Farxiga, they all have a type with metformin mixed with it. If it's mixed with another medicine, it tends to not cause as much diarrhea because it's more coated. So the brand name glucophage in the past was coated. Glucophage, the extended release, was coated and it didn't cause as much diarrhea. Now it's mixed with other drugs, so it still can cause diarrhea, but it's less likely because it's mixed with something else and coated.
Okay. All right, but remains stable. Are there other drugs now competing with that, or is it?
No,
are they just, no?
it's the only one in its class. The other drugs for insulin resistance that came out in the early 2000s were the thiazolidine diones. That's Actos and Avandia. Resolone was the first one, and then Avandia, then Actos. They improve insulin resistance in a different way, but they do not help weight loss. So they don't aid in weight loss like metformin does. So metformin is still the preferred because of the insulin resistance properties and the appetite suppression properties and the central obesity losing properties of metformin.
Are there other side effects besides the diarrhea, or again, if you take a coated form, you might get some relief?
Some people get nauseated. You always want to take it with food in your stomach, not by itself, because you run into trouble from nausea sometimes. Some people get muscle aches from it. The lactic acidosis problem is not as much of a problem as it was with the original fenformin at all. Renal insufficiency, people that their kidneys don't function since metformin is excreted solely through the kidneys. If your kidneys don't work right, a lot of drugs have to be reduced, and metformin would certainly have to be reduced.
Are the interactions, any interactions with other drugs that should be aware
No,
of?
the other metformin could cause a B12 deficiency, so I usually check B12, but not all the time.
Do you recommend B12 anyway for diabetics?
If you're deficient.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it just for fun. Just to shoot up with a red substance into your muscle.
Not just for fun.
I mean, some people would give B12 shots as an energy booster, but you can get too much B12 and it can interfere with your nerve damage. It causes nerve damage if it's too high too. So you can get too much B12, and unless you're deficient, you really don't need to be taking B12.
Does that come up in a blood panel?
Yes, you can measure it in the blood.
All right.
It's a good test.
Yeah, and so metformin and kidney disease. What's the?
So if your kidneys don't work, and it's measured in the GFR, which is glomerular filtration rate. Glomerulus is the little round thing full of blood vessels in the kidneys that filter the blood. So if your GFR is below 30, you can't use metformin at all, because metformin is only excreted through the kidneys. It doesn't get metabolized in the liver. It may affect the liver as far as lowering the sugar that the liver produces, but it doesn't get metabolized in the liver, so it doesn't cause any liver problems. It's just, and it doesn't cause kidney problems. It's just if your kidneys do not work properly, you can't take the full dose, and you may not be able to take it at all if your GFR is under 30. So those are the new rules for use of metformin.
Does it affect your creatinine levels?
No, metformin does not affect your kidneys. It just is if your kidneys don't work. Most people don't understand that because they have to, a lot of times they have to stop it before a contrast procedure like an x-ray, and they get confused about why they're stopping it. They're stopping it because the contrast dye from the x-ray can cause kidney failure. And if you're on metformin and you have kidney failure, theoretically you get real sick. But actually what happens is they stop the metformin, the blood sugar goes way high, they get dehydrated. They're very upset about it. But for now, there's no new rule about the x-ray.
Okay. All right. Learning more about metformin and all things that have to do with diabetes as well. Here with Lucas Research, you can go to Lucas Research online at lucasresearch.org. You can call to find out about studies as well at 222-5700, and we'll have more to come in just a moment here on Coastal Daybreak and Sugar Talk with Dr. K. Gene Lucas.